I was sent this video by DwarfRantz. I was told to check it out. It does seem like people want me to watch it, so I'm interested. It's called My Obligatory HP Inflation Follow-Up. I think I remember watching him say something about HP inflation before, basically insinuating that it's not as much of an issue as it seems. And I don't fully disagree with the takes that I've seen from DwarfRantz before, so I'm interested to watch it. So let's give it a go.
That's right, it's time for yet another HP inflation video.
He does say that, but I feel like we've talked about HP inflation. I feel like we're way past talking about HP inflation at this point, and we're way on to talking about specific buffs and overtly shilly buffs and bosses that are designed around specific agents, combined with HP inflation. That's the problem. And that's the problem that I laid out in my original video. Just FYI, was HP inflation is not the only problem. It's the specificity along with HP inflation that makes it a problem.
Spoilers for the rest of this, but I haven't really changed my opinion. Still, I did feel obligated to do a follow-up, since I did jump into this conversation the first time it was a hot topic. So why did I take so long to speak up? Well, first, there was no small share of cowardice delaying this video. I felt pretty confident that releasing a follow-up in the heat of the moment would mostly just net me angry comments. And a big reason I felt that way is that my opinion hasn't changed since the first time I did this. I still think the devs are doing a decent job of increasing the challenge without making the challenge too hard or unfair for longtime players.
And that's completely fair. That is completely fair.
I was scraping by the last time this was a hot topic.
Could you increase the volume a little? Yes.
And aside from a good week now and again, I'm still scraping by to this day. But if I think things didn't get worse, then why did the controversy flare back up at all?
Hey, it's me! It's me and Kete! Look at us, talking about HP inflation.
Here is my best guess. HP inflation is a thing. The challenge increasing is real. I didn't
That's what they
deny
do.
that last time, and I still don't deny that now. I still believe that the increase is to keep the goal challenging. And I think goal is the most important word in what I just said. I believe that differing goals is why the flare-up happened and is still happening. As the
Again, to be clear, like we are kind of way past talking about HP inflation at this point. It's about the specificity. We'll talk about that some more. I'll let him get into it.
challenge increases, my goal, the bar, hasn't changed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Gray. Yeah, Gray, he says it isn't fine and he can't clear. Yeah, it's not that he was 6-starring, but then on the same rotation, he's moved to 9 stars. I think it said something at the bottom here. These are my scores from the first day of the season. I know it's like, it's right in the way because of chat, but these are his scores from the first day of the season, and then he put them up, basically. So, yeah, that's kind of what he's saying, is that he maybe had to grind a little bit for it, but okay.
Been 20k the whole time. If you are underperforming, your goal hasn't changed either. It's still 20k, or 14, or 6. The challenge increase has made your climb higher, but still, there's ample evidence that with time, effort, and a little luck, your goal is still achievable. And if you are a sweaty super whale, and your goal is the kill, 65k, maybe your goal hasn't changed either. But finally getting to my point, what happens if you're a little sweaty, or a dolphin, or a whale, etc., etc.? What happens if your goal is to keep increasing your score in the region between like 25k and 65k?
Yeah.
If you are in this block, you probably hate HP inflation.
True. Yeah, it's probably these players that get affected the most, because remember, like it's a lower bar to clear to get from 0 to 20k than it is to go from 20 to 40k. It's not a huge difference, but it is easier. I definitely see what he's saying here. Like if you're in this bracket, then your goal is to like score push, right? I love score pushing. I enjoy score pushing. But the problem with score pushing is that it's very reliant on buffs and new characters and all of that kind of stuff. And honestly, as like a low spend player, it can be really hard to keep up. Genuinely.
If your goal is to consistently make your score go up over time, you are Sisyphus. HP inflation is actively working against you, and your only real option is to spend money.
Yeah, I mean, I said it in a nicer way, but yeah, that's basically what I just said. Yep. True. I don't agree. Players that barely scrape 20k are heavily affected. Yeah, you're right, Dokama. You are right. Maybe he'll get into it in a bit, but hang on. I don't want to jump around too much because I don't want to miss what he's saying. But like, all right, hear me out. So these teams are his teams, and he's scraping 20k. What he's doing with these teams is he's constantly improving them. He pulled, if we think about just since 2.0 units, he's pulled Yuzuha and he's pulled Orphe, right? So he's pulling characters in order to keep up, basically. All he's doing by pulling new characters is he's not gaining anything. He's maintaining the score. So the goal for him to 20k is, well, you have to keep pulling new characters in order to keep up with that goal. And as a free-to-play player, being able to keep up and still full clear the endgame content, I think he sees that as okay. And to be honest, to an extent, I can't really disagree with that. Like, if you get enough pulls as a free-to-play player to keep up and keep getting 20k, then that's kind of fine. I guess the problem becomes, like, well, what happens when certain characters just can't clear anymore? What happens when Yixuan just can't clear this anymore? What happens when Haramasa just can't clear this anymore? Like, we looked at that HP inflation going up, and the specificity of the buffs, the specificity of the way that the bosses are designed is actively working against you along with HP inflation. So then as that HP goes up, you become in a position where you are forced to change out the characters that you potentially like. You might like the characters and want to keep playing them, but the game is saying you can't anymore. That's what I'm worried about. And honestly, to be clear and honest, we are not there yet, but it's important that we're having these conversations.
You are swimming in pay-to-win waters. And just to tie off that maybe I mentioned, if you are a super whale and now your goal is getting the 65k kill faster, you're also in that boat.
True.
If you are expecting me to follow that up with some solution to your problem, sorry, I've got nothing.
Yeah, he's right. There is no solution. It's just the way that the game is being designed. The game is being designed in a way where free-to-play and low-spend players can keep up with the teams as long as they keep trading them out. As long as, like, at a certain point, maybe Yixuan can't get 20k here. Maybe Haramasa can't get 20k here. And you just have to be okay with the idea that you can just replace them with someone new.
I pulled this example out in the third part of the little Shield Defense challenge I did months ago, so in case you missed it, and because it's relevant to my point, I'm going to use it again. A challenge cannot please everyone, but the devs have got to set the bar somewhere. Set it too low, and it's not even a challenge. Longtime players will get bored. Set it too high, and you're going to struggle to get longtime players in the first place. People on the bar are the most content. Results may vary for everyone else.
Okay, it's fair enough that he's content, like, on the bar, like, on that balancing edge. I think, to be honest, this whole conversation started because people, including myself, were saying, hey, look, I think this might be going a little bit too fast, all right? I think we might be approaching this endgame power creep too quickly. I think we might be in a position of potential danger for this to get out of hand should this continue. And honestly, like, the bar, like as Dwarf is talking about, they've balanced it relatively well. Like, as we keep going, like, the HP increases in the last DA were substantially less, right? They were like 5 to 10% as opposed to being like 15%. They are balancing it slightly less, but they're giving us better buffs for specific characters. It all feels like, it's a gacha game. It's designed to make you spend money.
In this situation, I think the best answer is to keep the bar challenging, but close enough to new players that it still feels achievable. And I think that the Zenless Zone Zero devs have been doing a decent job of this. One thing I will add that's different from the last time I spoke up. Last time, I mentioned that I was still upgrading characters, that I hadn't maxed out everyone's stats.
Nice.
I still had room to improve just by spending energy, no skill required. That's still technically true, but significantly less so. I'm basically down to substats and meta spreadsheets at this point. Which I mention because I do think we are starting to reach a point where HP inflation needs to, and will, slow down.
Dawn's Plume is a choice.
The community is the driving force behind how fast the challenge grows. If our being the ZZZ community as a whole, scores and clear times start plateauing, then I'm expecting that we'll see that reflected in the challenge balancing. So if you're someone who's stuck pushing a boulder up the mountain, that boulder might actually stop rolling backwards before too much longer. But yeah, what a great message for a follow-up, right?
I think he's not wrong about the ball rolling back down. Like, as in the ball might not necessarily roll back down on you at a certain point, because at a certain point, we talked about Bringer earlier. Like, Bringer had to leave the game because he was becoming too close to being just a Miyabi check, right? When Bringer was still in, I think the last time we said was like 2.0, he was still clearable with other anomaly teams. He was still forceable with ice agents. But it kind of reached a tipping point where, should they have increased it anymore at that time, it would have been really, really hard for you to basically play anything else other than Miyabi into it. And I think that's the problem, right? But honestly, that's the reason why Bringer went away. That, as far as I, like, that's my opinion on why Bringer went away, is because they couldn't continue balancing Bringer for Miyabi and also for, general anomaly teams and potentially enemies who can take advantage of Ice Weak agents.
HP inflation is not currently a problem, it just sucks to be you. It is not really a message that's going to heal wounds or soothe tempers. All I have to offer is perspective. The increase in challenge has a purpose, and that purpose maybe doesn't align with your current goals. Some people are on the wrong side of the bar, and worse than that, a lot of them are on the pay-to-win side of the bar. What a message. Well, since I'm already stirring the...
Yeah, I guess, like, when you're talking about score chasing and stuff, like, I think score chasing and stuff is fun, but he's not wrong. I think he said you're swimming in pay-to-win waters. He's not wrong. That is true.
Pot by failing to find solutions and claiming that it's not such a big problem in the first place. I'm just gonna keep stirring. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine, but circling back to the HP inflation issue, a common thread I hear and see is that the difficulty increase is to force us to spend money.
Right.
That is a reasonable hypothesis on paper. But has anyone bothered to try and prove it? I can only speak for myself, but my usual response to a game setting unrealistic challenges is to walk away, not to break out my wallet. So here's my...
That's because you're a balanced and well-adjusted individual. You're a balanced and well-adjusted individual who's like, yeah, no, this game doesn't deserve my money. I'm not going to spend it. I don't know if that's true for a lot of the Gacha audience.
Plea to anyone making future HP inflation videos. If you are going to show the graph going up, which I expect it may continue to do so, please also pair that with a graph showing estimated revenue for the same period. I'm content with things as they are, and I'm lazy.
That just doesn't make sense. HP goes up as a way, one way that Gacha games increase the difficulty. It's not every way that they increase the difficulty. It is just one aspect of how they increase difficulty, right? It's just slowly creeping up that HP to, give you a reason to pull the newer characters, to give you a reason to want to upgrade your teams, because realistically what they make money from is they make money from you, like, pulling for a new character, and you kind of want to do that if you're, struggling to clear, or, you want to push for a higher score. It's just one way to increase difficulty, right? The money is not like a direct correlation to that. Like, it can't possibly be. Also, the money figures that we have are all over the fucking place and completely unreliable. So there's no point in doing it. Because we don't get reliable data anyway. And if a character, just from a character perspective, is just unpopular, I don't know, like, Seed and Orphe numbers, like, as much as Seed and Orphe are pretty cool characters, guys, I think I'm on record as to how I feel about Obol Squad. Look, I don't really give a fuck. But, like, let's say Seed and Orphe are pretty cool characters, and some of you like Seed and Orphe. They did not sell as well. We don't necessarily, again, have the exact numbers, but what we can do is we can check something like Internet Network, and we can see how many, like, sweatier players pulled for Seed and Orphe. If I can find a recent account that I've been on that has Seed and Orphe, and you'll see that their numbers are way, way lower than, like, someone like Userhard. There's almost 40,000 of Userhards, almost 50,000 Vivians, almost 111,000 Miyabis. Oh, Seed, 11,000 seeds on Internet. Look, I know that this is like the sweatier players, right? This is the sweatier players. So not everyone is going to be putting their details into Internet in order to check their stats and stuff. But, like, Again, like 9,500 Orphees. 9,500 Orphees, 11,000 seeds. In comparison to like 50,000 Evelyns, almost 70,000 Astras, and 110,000 Miabis. Yeah, like some characters, I guess my point is that some characters just don't sell because they're not as popular. So yeah, HP can go up and then the sales could go down. The sales could go down as HP goes, like there's no point conflating these two things. That's what my point is. The idea that HP inflation directly correlates with more money just doesn't make sense when we can't access an alternate reality where there is no HP inflation. Also true. Yeah, like if we had a game to compare against where there was no HP inflation in a parallel universe where everything else was exactly the same, then we could talk about it. But because we also have to consider the Shill Buffs, we also have to consider the boss design, we also have to consider, the characters themselves and how appealing they are, how exciting they are, how hype they are. And then also the fact that the actual data that we get on how much revenue the games make is wildly unreliable. So there is no point, is what I'm saying.
So I'm not going to do that for you. But I suspect the hypothesis may not hold up under scrutiny.
I doubt Idari will sell too well. Yeah, I agree. I don't think Idari will sell that well. She is definitely Guna bait. She might sell better than Orphe and Seed. She feels like she's niche Guna bait, and as a character, she's shaping up to be kind of mid. But she is hotter, I agree. But, it's not up to me.
On that same note, I can't skip talking about the Shill Buffs.
Let's go, Shill Buffs!
Buffs have never shilled harder than they have in 2.0. Is
True.
This unacceptable? Have the devs gone too far? Look, I don't particularly like it, but no, I don't think they've gone too far yet.
I thought he was going to say yeah. I don't think they've gone too far yet. Yeah. I think this is part of the problem, right? Is that if you give them an inch, there's a chance that they take a mile, right? If we don't say, hey, these Shill Buffs they're a little bit crazy, right? They're a little bit crazy right now. If we don't start saying, hey, this is a little bit crazy, then they'll just keep going, right? Yeah, how far is too far? That's the question, right? So at the moment, we have generic anomaly buff, obvious seed buff, but you can take advantage of it with Orphe, you can take advantage of it with Sambi. So basically, O-Ball squad buff, pretty much. But not only that, but you can also make this work in like unusual double attacker teams. Like because of this particular buff being still pretty good, I think they've nerfed it slightly from when Seed was first released, and then it was absolutely insane. But yeah, I think it's been nerfed ever so slightly since then, but it's still good enough that you can make weird double attacker comps work. So as much as this is definitely like a Seed / Orphe / Sambi buff, it's not unusable by other characters. Generic anomaly buff over here, which, by the way, isn't necessarily great for Miyabi. It's AP increase. Like, part of it is great for Miyabi, but it's not the same as something like Graceful Mastery, where you were getting the extra decibels, you were getting the extra build-up. Was it extra build-up on Graceful Mastery? But anyway, like, yeah, it's not necessarily as good as some of the anomaly buffs we've had in the past. It's more generic anomaly buff and not hugely useful for Miyabi. Then, over here, this is just... Yeah, so without Lucia, you only get access to the top part. The top part of it, you can still access with, just any Rupture team. But then the bottom part of it, because Wild in Ether Veil only applies to Lucia until Idari is released, then it's only for Lucia. And also the top part of it is like nowhere near as good as the bottom part of it. So yeah, like you get 10% sheer damage increase, and then you get the Miasma Shield dropping 30% faster, which we have talked about before. And that can still be really useful. This can be really useful. But the fact that you get 30%, like an additional 30, what would make this so much more balanced would be sheer damage by 20 and then additionally increased by 20. Because then it would still be at least generically useful. And then also the stun damage multiplier by 45% is ridiculous. Why didn't we just have the stun damage multiplier by 20% here and then 25% increase while in Ether Veil? Well, if we're going to make like buffs that specifically show for one character, at least make them usable by other characters from like the same specialty for like a Rupture buff. So then we could be like, oh, it's a Rupture buff. It does have Lucia specific elements, but you can still get, like 70% of its effectiveness without Lucia. Then I would feel okay about it. But the way it is written right now, you're getting like 15, 20% of its usefulness, maybe less. It's crazy.
I will agree that they have found that line and that the devs are pressing against it as hard as possible.
Okay, yeah, like I think we're in agreement there. Like, yeah, we are. Like, any more than this is like unacceptable, surely.
I just don't think they've crossed it. And the biggest reason I don't think they've gone too far yet is because my character luck has been very bad this season.
Okay.
I lost the 50-50 for Yixuan. I lost the 50-50 for Jufufu. Not only did I lose the 50-50 for Seed, but I kept going, ultimately putting more than 104.
I lost the 50-50 and I pulled Yanagi in like 60 pulls, so that was lucky. So so he lost, this is what the characters means he's going through. So he lost Yixuan, and then he pulled Caesar, and then he lost Jufufu, and then he pulled Yuzuha. He lost Seed, and then he pulled Yanagi.
40 pulls into her banner, and I still didn't manage to pull her. And
then he got Orphe.
79 pulls, I just lost the 50-50 for Lucia. And yet, I've still 9-starred every Deadly Assault, including the newest.
But yeah, he's getting the 9 stars, so that's chill.
And S-ranked Shiyu Defense for every reset so far in Season 2. The shilling is aggressive as hell, but the shilled characters still aren't required to clear the challenges.
If the shield characters ever become required to clear at a 9-star level, yeah, I think we're cooked. So surely not. Surely not.
Characters make the challenge easier. They are not mandatory. Now, I've also said that I think the devs tune the challenge for long time.
This guy talks too much about his own position. Who cares that he clears? Does majority clear? I think the thing is, though, is that like he's talking about it from his perspective as a player who is just clearing. So it's good to hear these opinions, you know? Because also, like, if I think about it like this, right? When I made my video about the HP inflation combined with the specificity in boss design and stuff, and I made that initial video, I was getting annoyed with the game because I was feeling like it was less fun. And I was also kind of feeling like, what about players who are just scraping by right now? What about them? So I think it's good to hear someone who is on that line and get their thoughts on it. Does he represent every single player who's in that position? No, because I don't think every single player who's in that position is like, oh, I'm gonna grind the living fuck out of this until I clear by 200 points on all of them. If this took like more than 3 or 4 tries, I think a lot of players would have been like, fuck this shit.
Build characters make the challenge easier.
And that score is 32%. Yeah, so so a third, roughly speaking, a third of players are getting the 9 stars.
Now, I've also said that I think the devs tune the challenge for long-time players. So outside of shilling, getting a full clear does require either mastery of character.
I'm just going to take that back a little bit, like, because he said that the devs tune the challenge based on older players, which is kind of true, but also kind of not true. If you make an incredibly strong shill buff for a particular agent, like Seed or Lucia, what that's doing is it's actually just letting newer players just play catch up immediately, right? Like immediately they're caught up. Like they could run a level 50 Lucia with Minato. They pulled Lucia, they won the 50, they got an M6 Minato. They run them both at level 50 with maybe Pan as well if they still had, like, oh, why would they have Pan? Oh, maybe they got him as part of losing Lucia 50s. I don't know, man. Yeah, they could just run that team and still probably 3-star if they joined in 2.3 or maybe towards the end of 2.2. It depends how much they play because they've got a lot of catch-up polychromes as well. So if you think about it, all of the permanent event stuff, all of the story stuff give polychromes. So if they're willing to sit down and play the game for multiple hours a night, like unlike, you know, regular players of the game, they're not going to cap out on event stuff. You know, they're not going to cap out on the polychromes for the patch because they've got like all of those patches worth of content to catch up, right? So they can pull Lucia this patch, they can pull Idari next patch, they could probably pull the next 4 limited S ranks if they wanted to. Potentially. Yeah, the shilling benefits whoever is pulling new characters. Yeah, so it is balanced around the idea of older players being able to clear with deep rosters, so to speak, but it's also balanced around the idea of someone can catch up really quickly because of these shill buffs, because of the new characters having bosses designed for them. The question mark is that are they going too far with making those things too overt, too over the top? And honestly, I think that we're walking on a knife's edge right now. And it's kind of like Dwarf said it earlier. He said something along the lines of like, they are like pushing right up against the line of like what is acceptable for these shill buffs.
Outside of shilling, Getting a full clear does require either mastery of characters and systems, which I've demonstrated that I don't have, or a broad roster that lets you match element weakness while leeching as many buffs as you can from the Shill buff, which is where I live.
Yeah.
So I'll agree that 9
Or just pulling the new unit.
stars is maybe too high of a hurdle to clear if, say, you only started playing in 2.0, or if you hoard your polychrome, going all in on just a select few meta characters or waifus.
There's basically no info for new players, though. Every single guide says use Astra or use Lighter. Yeah, you're kind of right. Yeah, you could be missing out on a few key supports. But the thing is that, like, there is team building things that you can do to work around that. Like, particularly, like, with someone like Seed or something, like, you get Nicole for free, right? You pulled Seed. You have that massive shield buff that's still in DA right now. You're fighting against a boss designed for her, i.e. Defiler. Or maybe Defiler was designed for Sambi. That's a conversation for another time. But it kind of puts you in a position where you can run Seed plus, you know, another attack agent and then like a free support. Your FTP options, your low spend options, your A rank options are still there. You can run Nicole, you can run Lucy, etc. See, Billy Nicole is so good. Exactly. Like, so yeah, you pull Seed, you benefit from the shield buffs. It's not necessarily like, hang on, what did he say here? Like, it's not necessarily about like how deep your roster is or like your your skill of mastery. Like, that's what it's testing if you don't want to pull Seed. But the solution for newer players is just pull Seed, or don't, you know, like, but understand that you're going to be capped at 6 stars this DA or 5 stars DA or 3 stars this DA, whatever it might be.
Speaking of newer players and shill buffs, I had a thought that occurred to me while I was writing this script.
Okay.
I'd call it a revelation or an epiphany, but those words are a bit too strong for this context. Is conspiratorial moment a thing? What do you call it when you're the person that starts a conspiracy? Anyway,
Go.
The morning this happened, I had just cleared the first set of hard mode fights in the new Endgame challenge, the branching story thing. And something I noticed while looking at the team buffs available was who the buffs were for. Attack, Anomaly, Yixuan, and Shill. I didn't really note anything else about it, but apparently my subconscious decided to chew on it because hours later, when I took a break for lunch, it dawned on me.
Generic anomaly buff, generic attack buff, buff for new agents, and for some reason buff for Yixuan. It's because she's the Void Hunter level unit. They're just going to continue to shill her for a while.
I think Yixuan was designed as an onboarding character. Let me
Yeah, no, I think this already makes perfect sense. I don't think this is a conspiracy at all. I think he's 100% right. Let's let him cook.
explain. I've mentioned before that I think the shill buffs lower the bar for newer players. You don't need them to clear the challenges, but when you don't have an alternative option in your roster, your best option is always available, that being the active banner character. If you just started playing right before or when 2.0 released, there was no better choice you could have made in the first 3 weeks of 2.0 than to pull Yixuan.
We are actually going to talk about this later. We're going to do a video recording where we talk about like horizontal investment, but like genuinely, when a Void Hunter level hyped unit comes out, I think the right thing to do is to pull them. This is something that I think Razor and I spoke about in like a kind of podcast context. And it was like, you should, yeah, like horizontal investment is pretty much always the way. But what you should absolutely do is pull the hype unit. I mean, if you really don't like the hype unit, like the Miyabi or the Yixuan, just don't pull them. That's fine. You don't have to. But if you want to get the most out of your pulls, as in the most bang for buck as a free-to-play, low-spend player, when Yixun Guang comes out, and she is... this isn't confirmed yet, but let's say she gets the Void Hunter title. Let's say she has a huge story moments in 2.5. It's very hype, very exciting. Then, yeah, you should probably just pull Yixun Guang, whether you like her or not, because honestly, she'll have a boss that's built for her and it will keep coming back. Like Bringer, like Priest, they make a boss, they keep putting them in, they keep giving you buffs that work really well for that character. Yeah, like you'll have like 3-4 patches of an easy ride for at least one of your DA fights and one of your Shiyu sides by pulling the hype new unit. Honestly, I kind of wish it was a little bit more open, but yeah, like he's right. Yixuan was an onboarding character. Honestly, yeah, getting the most bang for your buck from pulls was to pull Yixuan.
She's effectively a standalone character in her own right, and she released with her own dedicated A-rank.
You don't have to pull her, but yeah, it's just an awareness of the fact that like I've seen a few comments there like, yeah, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to pull her. You don't have to pull Yixuan Guang. You didn't have to pull Yixuan. You don't have to pull Miyabi. You don't have to pull any of these units. But if they're built up from a lore perspective as being like Void Hunter level and we get one every 4 or 5 patches, they shill them for at least the next 3-4 patches.
Support unit in Pan Yinhu on top of that. And for what's been 4 patches now, she's had a buff available in every Deadly Assault. And as I just mentioned, she's also got a buff in the new challenge mode. Yixuan was only available for 3 weeks at the start of 2.0. Why are they still shilling for her when she's not even shillable?
And again, this kind of comes back to the money figure. She sold well. They built her up. She sold well. We got a bunch of new players coming in who pulled for her because she's hot as fuck based. And let's let him cook. I think he's just going to say the same thing as I just said, but yeah.
In the endgame modes where you need multiple teams, I think the devs' intent was to make available a functional team. One which they've been supporting ever since. I think Yixuan was an intentional design decision to help out new and returning players who needed to build multiple teams. Now, I've got no actual evidence that this is true, but it makes a certain sense to me.
The evidence is in the game. The evidence is the fact that we've had Priest more than any other DA boss, probably. I've just made that claim, but we can check it. But I feel like Priest has been the most common boss in DA since 2.0. We will check that. We will fact check. Plus the consistent buffs that she gets in DA. Plus the fact that we had like a free-to-play support for her that launched with her, i.e. Pan. I don't think he's reaching at all here, is what I'm saying. I don't think that this is like a conspiracy or, I think the proof has been the last 3 patches, genuinely. Priest was in every DA since 2.0 except 1. Surely that's the most.
Going to design an endgame mode that encourages team building and having a diverse roster, it's probably a good idea to give players a handout every few patches to help new and returning players instead of just leaving them behind. Which leads me to believe that there's a similar intent behind Void Hunters. Not only is a super-powered character attractive in their own right, but some of the most publicized patches in a season are going to be the season start and the season climax. I think it's reasonable to say that a Void Hunter is also a mid-season onboarding character for new and returning players, attracted by all of the press around a super character and a big story climax.
I think they expect you to pull the Void Hunter. Yes, they do. They expect you to pull the Void Hunter or Void Hunter level units. Yeah. I don't even think this is a conspiracy. They will shill them for longer than anyone else. Yes, that's true. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think that if you want to get the most bang for buck, the most value out of your pulls, then yes, you should pull the Void Hunter level units.
Anyway, that's the conspiracy I came up with that I felt I had to share. That ZZZ's OP characters are intentionally designed as a handout or a leg up to new and returning players, which is also why they get supported across multiple patches.
Yeah, 100%. Like, but again, like they're gonna push them really hard. You can skip them as a player, but you just have to be prepared for the fact that you're gonna have to brute force content that's gonna be designed for them. So that's not me saying that you can't beat Priest with Yixuan. You can keep beating Priest with Yixuan, but you're working around the fact that you don't have Yixuan, because Yixuan would have just made that fight like your score would have doubled. You also need to push some older characters periodically just so reruns have value. Honestly, Shivam, that's like the thing I'm most worried about with ZZZ, is that, let's think about this now, right? Because there are rumors, and I mentioned this in my recent video, about Ellen potentially rerunning next patch. Ellen had so much hype around her buffs in 2.0, and we have marionettes who are on Deadly Assault, and the people who benefited from the Ellen buff were like, oh my god, this is so good. I'm getting like 45k, 50k against marionettes with Ellen. This is sick. Marionettes gone, dead. And like, what is Ellen really benefiting from now, I guess? And I guess the thing is like, if Ellen comes back next patch, the advice from content creators generally is probably going to be, unless the reason you started playing was Ellen, probably don't pull Ellen, man. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ellen mains. And she even had the buff. And marionettes haven't run since 2.0? I don't believe so, no. Yeah. Dej. It's very sad. Like, I think Ellen's design sold me on starting ZZZ. Like, I kind of saw the gameplay. I think it looked kind of cool. And then this fucking shark made with these awesome trailer, with this awesome music. I was like, oh man, I'm installing this shit. Like, genuinely. Kind of sad. But yeah, right now, Ellen is an easy skip. You're right, Anime Girl Games.
Shilling is directly related to polling. Here's my next bit of controversy. Vivian's swimsuit poll event.
Bro, we're so far from HP inflation right now. Okay, let him cook.
Now, it should be pretty obvious to anyone who's been following my channel that I don't care at all about this issue.
Thanks.
Not only do I not have Vivian, but I've been very upfront about how I spend my polls. The Vivian skin is just guaranteed for me. A freebie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he just doesn't save and he just spends his pulls constantly. Yeah, I get it. That's fair, because you're just going to get it anyway. Let's see what he says about the whole process, the whole Vivian skin.
Don't have to spend any additional money or pull any differently. If you clear the new content and events and spend your polychrome, you will get enough pulls to get Vivian's skin, even if you are fully free to play. I 100% believe that.
Yeah, because there will be more than 180 pulls across the 2 patches. He's not wrong. It's 100% true.
But rather than break down my experience and figure out where all the pulls are coming from, which I talked about in my very first video.
If pulling Void Hunters isn't fun for you, though, then what happens? That's fine. Like, you just have to understand the fact that you're going to be clearing content that's designed around those characters. Priest is made for Yixuan. Bringer was made for Miyabi. We'll get a new boss that is made for Yixuan Wang. And more so than something like Wandering Hunter, which is, designed around both Idari and arguably Manato. Like, we're probably going to see those bosses more consistently, and you just have to be okay with the fact that you're going to be forcing that content with someone else.
But rather than break down my experience and figure out where all the pulls are coming from, which I talked about in my very first video, I just want to say this. I am looking forward to seeing people share where they're at when we roll into 2.4. This event is effectively a 12-week pull counter, and so I'm expecting some people to be genuinely surprised with how high their number gets right before patch 2.4 comes out.
To be fair, Zenless has always been pretty decent with pulls. I think when we were looking ahead at like 2.3, 2.4 patch in terms of pulls, it was well over 100 for both, right? So if you're sending for a character, yeah, you're gonna reach the 180 pull cap unless you just get unreasonably lucky and you get them early, and then you have no reason to send more pulls. But yeah, I think a lot of players will just end up with the skin almost by accident. But it doesn't change the fact that if you weren't going to pull in 2.3 and 2.4, it might apply a tiny little bit of pressure on you to pull. And honestly, that's probably why it's there.
If you are a polychrome hoarder, it sucks for you, especially with the 180-day lock we learned about right before the patch. But as I've made clear...
Yeah, the 180-day lock he's talking about is the fact that it won't be available for 180 days in the shop. So it's just a way to enhance FOMO, I guess. It also means, like, if the only character that you were interested in 2.3, 2.4 was the Vivian rerun, and you get her early, you want to wait 6 months for the skin, bro? It's just FOMO. Just gacha tactics, honestly. There's a part of me that's annoyed about it on behalf of people who probably don't care. So I'm not going to get too annoyed about it. It might enhance someone's FOMO to a point where they're like, oh, maybe I should, I'm 50 pulls away. Maybe I'll just send it on Lucia or Banyu or whatever, just so I can get the skin and I don't have to wait 6 months. I could see that happening. But honestly, like I said, I'm not going to get offended on behalf of people who don't really care. So it's whatever.
I don't have a horse in your race. I'm not exactly going to join anyone in protest. Another thing I wanted to mention related to Vivian's event is a follow-up to the idea that the entire point of the Vivian pull event is to get us to spend all of our polychrome right before a new Void Hunter comes out in 2.5.
I mean, it's one way to do it, right?
So they can sell us more polychrome. That is an entirely rational conclusion, and I cannot refute it. I still don't care. We already know I don't save my polls, so the thing I want to add to this argument is that maybe the devs' generosity will repeat itself. What do I mean by that? Well, the last time that ZZZ released a Void Hunter, at the climax of the season's story, they made that Void Hunter pullable for the entire patch. And they gave us a bunch of bonus polychrome.
Which is also probably why we weren't making as much fuss about Bringer as we probably should have been.
And they also gave us the other character, Harumasa, for free. The only way you didn't end up with Miyabi is because you didn't pull for her. They might do that
I did not pull Miyabi in 1.4. Yeah, but Chunks, you can't argue that wasn't a choice.
again. And if they do it again, then we'll all have very good odds of pulling said Void Hunter in the 6 to 7 weeks the banner is available.
Free Zhao with Yixuan. Look, never say never, all right?
If you didn't save anything. That means the only reason to save is for Mindscapes. And look, at my level, down here at the bar, if there's any character you definitely don't need Mindscapes or signature for, it's the bloody Void Hunter, right? I've got an M0 Miyabi with no signature weapon, and let me assure you, she has still managed to live up to her title. Yes, there's no guarantee that they'll do this
I mean, there are things we could do with that build, man, but, you know, it's fine, it's fine.
again, but it wouldn't surprise me if you told me that 1.4 was one of their most profitable patches ever, so I doubt it would really hurt their bottom line if they did it
Yeah, she's still fine, though, obviously, like, yeah.
again. Which is all to say that I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we're all getting a free bunny for New Year's.
Yeah, all right, sure, man. Like, I'd love to believe it. I would love to believe it. Let's get this man into account help now. No. Anyway, is he wrapping up?
Drama time is over. Thanks for hanging around. I want to again thank the ZZZ community for evangelizing this game. You may have noticed that I had some pretty low scores at the start of this latest reset. The whole reason I doubled down and cleared on day 3 was the combination of wanting to 9-star before I wrote this script, and watching other CCs clear using non-meta teams. I'm not good enough to create those videos, so I appreciate.
Yeah, there is a part of me, though, that's thinking, like, yeah, it's good that he's having fun with this, but I think a lot of players, hang on, a lot of players at like, hang on, let me just go back a little bit. A lot of players at this point would just be like, that's 6 stars. I'm bouncing.
Reset. The whole reason I doubled down and cleared on day 3 was the combination of wanting to 9-star before I wrote this script, and watching other CCs clear using non-meta teams. Now, since this was something of a debate episode, I do want to say that I generally enjoy responding to comments, as long as they aren't too angry.
I honestly,
so do feel free to write something below if you wanted to.
I think it was a fine video. I think it was pretty chill. It wasn't even that much about HP inflation. I do think he talked about the shill buffs, like, generally. I think honestly, like, that's what the conversation should be more around. It should be it's more around the specificity of bosses and their buffs, and the buffs that we get in DA, and less just around HP inflation. Like, if we're looking at HP inflation as, like, the only problem, like, we're looking at the whole thing wrong, I guess. Yeah, he talked about everything. Yeah, he did talk about everything. Yeah, I guess that's why we ended up pausing so much, because, yeah, he covered a lot, and how people on his perspective could enjoy or experience the game. Yeah, and I think that's so totally valid. And it's also, yeah, I think it's such a healthy way to approach the conversation, is being like, look, I'm just going to tell you how I feel about it.